It was pitched as a way to help people unable to afford the deposit required to buy their own home. The Help to Buy scheme is a flagship UK government policy that Prime Minister David Cameron says will assist those on an average wage and unable to rely on rich parents to get a foot on the property ladder. Help to Buy means that from this week almost anybody in the UK could put down a 5% deposit on a property worth up to £600,000 and apply for a government-backed mortgage.
Having that 5% would make a massive difference because it means that we're more likely to be able to afford the property. I think we definitely would go for the 5%. We couldn't afford any more than that really right now.
Interest in the scheme is rising quickly, and not just among first-time buyers.
Ryme's got a Help to Buy page, and traffic since David Cameron's announcement has actually gone up fivefold on that Help to Buy information page. Help to Buy will certainly underpin buyer confidence and the ability of sellers to be able to get more for their property. I would anticipate that Help to Buy will help prices tick along, but it really does depend upon whether supply comes to market to try and balance somehow the increased demand.
And there lies the big concern. The second phase of Help to Buy, introduced this week, applies to all property purchases and not just new build homes. The scheme looks certain to boost demand, but the supply question remains an issue.
Not enough houses are being built in the first place, and it isn't clear what this second big phase of Help to Buy really does to rectify that. It might be better to go out and build a lot more houses, but that's very politically difficult. One, because it would involve building over the green belt, and people don't like that. And secondly, because more supply might mean that house prices fall, and those people who own houses and vote don't like that.
It may be good news for those first-time buyers trying to get onto the property ladder, but critics say the Help to Buy scheme could cause another property bubble. Even the Tory MP and head of the Treasury Select Committee, Andrew Tyree, this week said that government intervention in the residential property market has a checkered history.
We've obviously seen the whole experience of the United States government propping up the mortgage market in the United States, and we saw what happened in the run-up to the 2008 crash. So it's more than a checkered history, it's a very worrying one in many respects. That's why so many people have been concerned about it, why Mervyn King, the former governor of the Bank of England, was concerned about it. And it's one of the reasons why George Osborne has introduced this emergency brake system into the whole Help to Buy scheme, where the Bank of England can now run a health check on this scheme to see whether a housing bubble is starting to inflate, and can adjust the scheme to try to avoid that happening.
The International Monetary Fund says Help to Buy has worthwhile goals, but it too has joined a chorus of economists in warning the scheme could lead to the UK property market overheating.
There's been a lot of talk about property bubbles recently, and I think, to be honest, some of it has become slightly hyperbolic. So if you look at this chart here, I've just pulled this off the Bank of England website, this is net mortgage lending. So you can see, in terms of credit fuel bubbles, this is a bubble here. What we have right now is not a bubble at all. London, yes, there might be a bubble, and that is something to be concerned about. But everywhere else in the country, I think that's a bit over the top.
George Osborne thinks getting the housing market moving is an important part of the UK's economic recovery. More house purchases means more people spending money on removal men and at DIY shops. There's a clear political dimension to the policy too.
Kind of people that are going to be helped through this Help to Buy scheme, people who are struggling to raise their deposit for their first home perhaps, or struggling to raise the deposit at all, they're the kind of swing voters that all the parties are targeting in the next election. So sure, it has an economic purpose, but with George Osborne, politics are never very far away from the surface.
Opponents say the absence of measures to boost the supply of houses could prove dangerous if interest rates start to rise.
Those people who go out and take out mortgages for 95% of the value of the house, they might be able to afford the repayments now, but as soon as interest rates rise even a little bit, that's going to mean a big monthly increase in their repayments. And so it is possible that unless the banks are really stress testing these loans and making sure that people's incomes are large enough to cope with rising rates, that people will find themselves suddenly unable to pay the mortgages, and that's when the government obviously finds itself on the hook.
It'll take a brave chancellor to pull the plug on the policy in 3 years' time once people are used to it. And although the government has given the Bank of England power to put an emergency brake on the scheme in the event of a housing boom, the big question is whether the central bank would be prepared to do something that could prove to be politically unpalatable. Daniel Garrahan, Financial Times, London.